Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Saudi Arabia won't recognize Israel without path to Palestinian state. Pressure mounts on Israel over its rejection of two-state solution. Iran is directly involved in Yemen Houthi rebel ship attacks, U.S. Navy's Mideast chief tells AP. Making sense of India's muted response to the Red Sea crisis. U.S. targets Iraqi airline, its CEO, and Hamas cryptocurrency financiers for sanctions. Saudi Arabia won't recognize Israel without path to Palestinian state. South China Morning Post. Saudi Arabia has stated that it will not normalize relations with Israel or provide aid for the reconstruction of Gaza without a credible pathway to a Palestinian state. The comments from Prince Faisal bin Farhan put Saudi Arabia at odds with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has rejected Palestinian statehood and described plans for open-ended military control over Gaza. The dispute over Gaza's future is a major obstacle to any plans for post-war governance or reconstruction in Gaza, and it pits the United States and its Arab allies against Israel. Pressure mounts on Israel over its rejection of two-state solution. Washington Post. Israel's war against Hamas is sowing hatred and a two-state solution is needed, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said yesterday. Which are the other solutions they have in mind, he asked, referring to the Israelis. To make all the Palestinians leave? To kill them? He added that the current Israeli military operation that has killed 25,000 people in the Gaza Strip is seeding the hate for generations. Iran is directly involved in Yemen Houthi rebel ship attacks, U.S. Navy's Mideast chief tells AP. Associated Press. The U.S. Navy's top commander in the Middle East has said that Iran is very directly involved in the ship attacks in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden carried out by Yemen's Houthi rebels. Vice Admiral Brad Cooper, head of the Navy's Fifth Fleet, said that the attacks, which have disrupted shipping through the Suez Canal, were the most significant they've seen in 2 generations. He said Iran was clearly funding, resourcing, supplying and providing training to the Houthis, but stopped short of saying Tehran directed the attacks. Making sense of India's muted response to the Red Sea crisis. Diplomat. The recent Houthi attacks on international maritime vessels in the Red Sea are causing global repercussions. The attacks have led to shippers rerouting away from the Red Sea, resulting in increased freight costs that are likely to impact energy prices and inflation. India has been directly impacted by the attacks and has increased its maritime presence in the region. The attacks began in November 2023 when Houthi rebels hijacked an Israeli cargo ship. Since then, more than 28 ships have been attacked. In response, the US and UK, supported by Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, have launched military strikes against Houthi targets. India has refrained from joining the multinational operation but has increased its maritime presence in the region. The Houthi attacks come as an attempt to divert attention away from the domestic political situation. The Houthis have a special relationship with Iran and are likely receiving material support and training from Tehran. Iran has sent a warship to the Red Sea as a show of force. The US has reportedly sent a private message to Iran about the Houthis, signaling the role Tehran can play in de-escalating the crisis. US targets Iraqi airline, its CEO, and Hamas cryptocurrency financiers for sanctions. Associated Press. The US has sanctioned Iraq's Fly Baghdad and its CEO Bashir Abdulqadim Alwan al-Shabani, alleging assistance to Iran's military wing. The sanctions also come as the country imposes further sanctions on Hamas for cryptocurrency abuse since the October 7 terrorist attack on Israel. Let's talk about it. EU's Borrell presses Israel on two-state solution. Al Jazeera. The European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has insisted on a two-state solution in the Israel-Palestine conflict, stating that Israel's plan to destroy Hamas is not working. Borrell echoed the United Nations' condemnation of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's rejection of calls for a Palestinian state. The EU's 27 foreign ministers are set to hold separate meetings with their counterparts from Israel, the Palestinian Authority, and key Arab states to discuss the ongoing violence in Gaza. Germany's foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, also backed the two-state solution and called for a humanitarian pause to the conflict. Iran and Pakistan rebuilding diplomatic ties following tit-for-tat strikes. Al Jazeera. Iran and Pakistan have announced that they will resume diplomatic relations after recently engaging in air strikes. The two countries will return recalled ambassadors on January 26 and Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amirabdollahian will visit his Pakistani counterpart 3 days later. The airstrikes targeted terrorist groups in the border regions of both countries. The attacks led to a deterioration in diplomatic relations, with ambassadors being withdrawn and official ties severed. The situation caused global alarm, as tensions were already high in the region due to the conflict between Israel and Gaza. However, Iran and Pakistan have moved quickly to de-escalate the situation and seek good neighborly relations. Israeli hostage families protest as Netanyahu rejects Gaza truce. Financial Times. Relatives of Israeli hostages held in Gaza have protested outside Benjamin Netanyahu's house in Jerusalem after the Israeli Prime Minister rejected Hamas's latest terms for their release. Hamas is demanding, in exchange for the hostages, the end of the war, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, the release of the attackers and leaving Hamas in place. Netanyahu said agreeing to these terms would mean the soldiers would have fallen in vain. There are approximately 130 hostages still being held by Hamas. Iran's changing strategy sparks fear of regional war in the Middle East. ABC. Iran is becoming increasingly involved in a number of conflicts across the Middle East, a departure from its previous strategy of fighting through proxies, which could have significant implications for the country and the region. Conflict involving Iranian proxies or allies has occurred in Syria, Iraq, Israel, Lebanon, the Red Sea, Yemen, and Pakistan. The new tactics could come at a great cost to Iran, as it increasingly finds itself embroiled in confrontation and suffering attacks. The situation risks escalating into a regional war, with potential involvement from the US and Iran's Houthi allies in the Red Sea. Update 1: Israeli plan to destroy Hamas not working, peace talks needed EU's Borrell. Yahoo! The European Union must pursue efforts to create a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine despite Israeli opposition, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has reaffirmed a hard line against any Palestinian state as it would pose an existential danger to Israel, insisting on full security control over all territory west of the Jordan River. Israel's massive aerial and ground offensive in Gaza has killed over 2,500 Palestinians, according to Hamas-run health authorities, and displaced most of its 2.3 million people. Well, my dear viewers, it seems like the situation in the Middle East continues to be as complicated as ever. Today, we have news from Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iran, India, Iraq, and Pakistan, all showcasing the ongoing tensions and conflicts in the region. Let's dive right into it. First up, we have Saudi Arabia stating that it will not recognize Israel or provide aid for the reconstruction of Gaza without a credible pathway to a Palestinian state. This puts them at odds with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has rejected the idea of Palestinian statehood. It's a classic case of he said, she said in the Middle East. Can't we all just get along? Speaking of getting along, the pressure is mounting on Israel to accept a two-state solution. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell is calling for it, and he's not mincing his words. He's asking the Israelis, which are the other solutions they have in mind? To make all the Palestinians leave? To kill them? Ouch, that's a burn. But in all seriousness, a two-state solution seems to be the most viable option for lasting peace in the region. Now, let's talk about Iran. The U.S. Navy's top commander in the Middle East has said that Iran is very directly involved in the ship attacks carried out by Yemen's Houthi rebels. These attacks have disrupted shipping through the Suez Canal and are causing global repercussions. It's a classic case of he said, he did it in the Middle East. Can't we all just sail peacefully? Moving on to India, they seem to be taking a more muted response to the Red Sea crisis. They've increased their maritime presence in the region but have refrained from joining the multinational operation against the Houthi rebels. The attacks by the rebels are causing shippers to reroute away from the Red Sea, increasing freight costs and potentially impacting energy prices and inflation. So, it's not just about the conflict between Israel and Palestine, but it's also about the ripple effects it's causing in the global economy. Who knew the Middle East had such an impact on our wallets? In other news, the US has targeted Iraqi airline Fly Baghdad, its CEO, and Hamas cryptocurrency financiers for sanctions. It seems like everyone is getting in on the action. But let's not forget about the European Union, whose foreign policy chief is pressing Israel on the two-state solution. The EU's 27 foreign ministers are set to hold separate meetings with Israel, the Palestinian Authority, and key Arab states to discuss the ongoing violence in Gaza. It's like a diplomatic marathon in the Middle East. And finally, we have Iran and Pakistan rebuilding diplomatic ties after engaging in airstrikes. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. 1 minute they're fighting, the next minute they're making up. It's like a never-ending soap opera in the Middle East. Well, my dear viewers, there you have it. The Middle East continues to be a hotbed of conflict and tension. From Saudi Arabia's stance on Israel to Iran's involvement in various conflicts, it's clear that peace is still a distant dream. But hey, at least we have some drama to keep us entertained, right? Now, I turn the floor over to you. What are your thoughts on these latest developments in the Middle East? Do you think a two-state solution is still possible? And how do you see Iran's changing strategy affecting the region? Let's hear your thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.